Welcome back to U.S. History Recapped, and today we will be taking a look at different early key events in the story of the United States. Hundreds of years ago, when Europeans sought new land, they found the Americas, which were already inhabited by the Native American people. Throughout the 1600s, colonist pilgrims and immigrants started to create colonies like the Virginia colony. The British at the time owned most of the land and territory, especially after the French and Indian War, which took place from 1754 to 1763. The people of these colonies started to become very unhappy with Great Britain, though. They came up with reasons like the need for representation because they were being taxed, and how they believed the King of England mistreated them.
The King of Great Britain has made it unbearable to live here. Did you hear about the Boston Massacre? People are being shot and killed by British troops. Not only this, but he also taxes us without our consent and does not give us representation.
Yes, they increase the taxes on the goods we need just so they can benefit from us. And what you said about representation is right too. How can we function in their government when our ideas are not represented in their government?
We need our own government so that we are not controlled and told what to do by people that live very far away. Every day there seems to be new acts, like the Quartering Act, which expects us to allow the British soldiers into our house and allows them to eat our food that we work for. We need something to change.
To protest and show that British things needed to change, the Sons of Liberty, who were a group of colonists from Massachusetts, decided to do something that will forever be known as the Boston Tea Party.
Did you hear about what happened on the news?
Yes, I don't blame those men who are dressed up as Native Americans and dumped 92,000 pounds of tea into the harbor den at Boston. We colonists are not being taken seriously at all. We cannot sit around waiting for these things to change. We must take measures into our own hands.
This led them to want to declare independence from Great Britain. The colonies did not go straight to becoming an independent nation, though.
The current situation that we are in and the abuse we feel needs to change.
We must send a letter to King George III, telling him that we will boycott if they do not listen to us.
Yes, and if they do not listen, let's meet again in May of 1775.
But as people continued to feel the effects of being controlled, they decided to draft up a Declaration of Independence. The people appointed were called the Committee of Five. One of the people in the committee was founding father Benjamin Franklin, who once said, "Love your enemies, for they tell you your faults."
They have called us, the Committee of Five, and appointed us with the task of writing a Declaration of Independence. So we must do it right.
I believe that Thomas Jefferson should write the first draft.
That's a fine idea.
After he's done, we can meet again and make sure it's perfect.
And so does 6.
After a few weeks, the draft of this document was created. Soon after the Second Continental Congress in 1776, the Declaration of Independence was signed and the United States of America was born.
I present to you the Declaration of Independence.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with a certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is perfect. So today, July 4th, 1776, we, the Congress, accept it.
But the colonists had not technically created an independent nation yet, because they still had to win a war. Winning the Revolutionary War would secure the USA's independence from Great Britain. The war officially began when the Battle of Lexington and Concord occurred, with its famous shot heard from around the world.
Since the war took place in the colonists already had many advantages, such as land. The landmass of the colonies was so large that the British already had a disadvantage in the first place, as it was too much land to conquer. Plus, the colonists knew the land much better than the British. Another reason that colonists won is that the British did not trust their soldiers' fighting skills and did not trust the loyalists in the colonies. They could have taken advantage of the loyalists, but didn't because of the lack of trust. They also won the war with the help of France, Spain, and the Netherlands. These allies made all the difference on America's road to independence. The Revolutionary War was officially over when the Treaty of Paris was signed in 1783.
The Revolutionary War consisted of many different wars and battles. The big turning point in the war was the Battle of Saratoga. This battle was won by the colonies in the spring of 1777. Furthermore, the battle convinced the French to help the colonists. One other battle was the Battle of Yorktown. This was one of the last major conflicts, and it took place in New York. What happened was that British troops in the Chesapeake Bay were surrounded by the French Navy and the American Army. The troops surrendered on October 19, 1781. This battle essentially ended the war. Though the Revolutionary War was officially over when the Treaty of Paris was signed in 1783, which was 3 years later. After independence was declared, the war was near over. The Founding Fathers needed to form a government to unite the 13 colonies. This is why the Articles of Confederation were created.
We have declared independence, but we need to form a government to unite the 13 colonies.
I've written a draft of something called the Articles of Confederation. The main purpose is to have a written set of rules for the colonies to follow. The document consists of 13 articles. For example, the first one established is a name to unite the colonies into the United States of America. Most of these are providing the states with more power, like the article that says the Committee of the States can act for Congress when Congress is not in session.
But in order for the articles to be ratified, all 13 states had to approve them. It was sent out to be ratified by the end of 1777. The first state to ratify it was Virginia on December 16, 1777, and the last state was Maryland on February 2, 1781. It worked well throughout the American Revolution, but it had a lot of flaws. There was no way to raise money through taxes, no national court system, and no way to enforce the laws passed by Congress. This is why in 1788, 7 years after Maryland ratified it, the Articles of Confederation were replaced by the United States Constitution. The Constitutional Convention was held on May 25, 1787, with the purpose to discuss and fix the Articles of Confederation. States were invited to send delegates to participate, but only 12 out of the 13 states sent delegates to the convention. The state that did not was Rhode Island. In total, 55 delegates were present, but only 39 actually signed the proposed constitution. Elbridge Gerry of Massachusetts, George Mason, and Edmund Randolph of Virginia refused to sign because they thought the document was flawed. John Dickinson of Delaware wasn't able to attend the convention's final session, so he had Delegate George Reed sign his name in absence. This ended for a total of 39 signers. Some important people that signed it were George Washington, James Madison, John Adams, Alexander Hamilton, Benjamin Franklin, James Monroe, and many more. Delegates who attended the convention proposed constitutional plans in order to benefit them and their colonies.
We come here today to discuss the new Constitution, something that will replace the Articles of Confederation and its weaknesses. Today, we will allow different delegates to offer up their ideas for a better nation.
Side note, Federalists supported a strong central government, but while balancing it with liberty to prevent tyranny. On the other hand, anti-Federalists believed a strong government could become corrupt and cause tyranny. Many anti-Federalists ended up opposing the ratification of the Constitution. For example, Edmund Randolph, the person about to present his plan, he had different Federalist and anti-Federalist viewpoints. The plan he was proposing was created by James Madison, who was a strong supporter of federalism and famously once said, "The advancement and diffusion of knowledge is the only guardian of true liberty."
I present to you the Virginia Plan. It calls for a strong central government with multiple elements. It will establish a bicameral or two-branch legislature, and the representation of each state will be based on population. It will also divide the government into 3 branches: executive, legislative, and judicial. This will create a system of checks and balances, which means the power will be separated to prevent one branch from becoming too powerful.
We understand your ideas, but now we want to showcase a different view. This plan is presented by William Patterson.
I, William Patterson, present to you the constitutional plan that will best benefit the people of America. It is called the New Jersey Plan. It will produce a strong government with a single House of Congress or a unicameral legislature. Each state will be given one vote in Congress, which is fairer to smaller states than what the Virginia plan proposes.
Here's another thought by Roger Sherman.
I bring to the table the great compromise. I want the representatives in each house of the bicameral legislature to be chosen differently. The number of representatives in the lower house or the House of Representatives will be based on the state's population, which is proportional representation. But each state will have 2 representatives in the Senate or the upper house. The representation of each state in the lower house will be adjusted every 10 years through a federal census that will count every person in our nation.
I like this idea. It's a good mix between the 2 other plans, and it will benefit both large and small states. But what about slaves? Southerners and Northerners both disagree on how they should be represented. Any ideas?
I have an idea. I think that slaves shouldn't be counted in voting. It will be unfair to the states with no slaves.
Slaves are part of this country. They should count as well.
How about 3/5 of all slaves one owns are counted, but the others are not?
That sounds good.
What are we going to do about taxing imports and exports? Should we even do it in the first place? I think we should tax imports and exports on the country giving or taking them.
I don't agree. This will reduce our product sales. We should be taxing you on our goods.
What if we only tax the imports but not the exports? This will add to the value of our goods.
This is a better idea than both of the others.
The slave population is increasing too rapidly, and we have to put an end to this trade. It is not natural to keep ruining these lives for our gain.
We can't make any money or crops without the use of slaves.
We have to abolish this trade of slaves. Maybe not now, but in the near future.
We can abolish the trade of slaves in 1808, no sooner.
Perfect. One last issue is that we need to cover how we vote for our president.
We can't have the president elected through popular vote because some people aren't educated enough.
Good point. What if they vote for someone else who's more educated that would be bound to vote for a certain candidate? This will make it so that there is a greater chance that we will elect a better president. The people they vote for could be a group of electors proportional to the population.
That seems to fix all the problems we have had. Now we have created a document that will be the supreme law of the land, the U.S. Constitution.
One other important topic that had to be discussed was the idea of a Bill of Rights. Many did not think this idea was great for the Constitution. One of the reasons why is because many people did not think it would provide any protection or power. But after time, the idea was approved because of the necessary demand for basic human rights to be protected. The Bill of Rights was also needed because it guaranteed civil liberties. In result, James Madison created 12 amendments that were going to be added to the Constitution. But only 10 were accepted, and they became known as the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights was based on many documents that came before it. For example, Magna Carta, the Virginia Declaration of Rights, and the English Bill of Rights. One of the most important amendments is the first that states that there is freedom of religion, speech, press, and assembly in the United States.
In the end, the Constitution became the United States official government structure when New Hampshire was the 9th state to ratify it. Only 9 out of 13 states were needed for it to be approved, so New Hampshire was the last. The first state to ratify it was Delaware on December 7th, 1787, and the last was Rhode Island. The ideas that came out of this convention made our country what it is today. The problems that our nation had were solved because of the different ideas that this convention provided. It set the United States on a course to becoming a constitutional republic. Since the Constitution was made so long ago, the country has changed it as time went on. The document has had many parts added to it and has been modified multiple times. Currently, the Constitution has 27 amendments, 10 of which are the Bill of Rights. The information in this video does provide sufficient background history about the U.S., but the story continues far after what is shown. Though, the Constitutional Convention was by far the main event that created the United States government. Without these debates and plans, we might have never become a nation that was successful in its endeavors.